The problem is that when domestic abuse is a feature, that co-parenting relationship will not work. And then this will always end up in court. This will always end up in court because one parent is using the child arrangements to continue the abuse of the other parent, and that is their priority. Hello and welcome to this vlog for the Survivor Diaries. This vlog is being made on the day we've just done an episode, and it's where I have in that episode described how I worked previously as a teacher, and then when I met my abusive husband I worked as an escort, and I'm now a family lawyer, practicing family lawyer. So I've just decided to be open about this today. This is 7 days before my own court hearing, and when I think that my ex-abuser is intending to bring up things in the past and to try to shame me into feeling like something like some kind of worse mother or bad mother for the things that I've done in the past. The purpose of this vlog, though, is to demonstrate that child arrangements proceedings don't happen in a vacuum, and I want the courts to understand, I want litigants in person to understand, friends and family of people going through court proceedings where there are looking at the child arrangements, and there's an issue going on in the child arrangements because the co-parenting relationship had domestic abuse as a feature. And this will invariably continue through the child arrangements where it can. Domestic abuse will always continue through the child arrangements if it can. And this is the message that I need to get across to the family justice system, along with the way to deal with it, which is the correct implementation of a practice direction 12J. And some of you may have observed that there is a small duck also featuring in this video log. And the reason for this small duck I'll go on to in a second. The purpose is to demonstrate that these things child arrangements proceedings don't happen in a vacuum. The 7 days prior to my own first hearing dispute resolution appointment, and I'm speaking as a court user rather than as a lawyer, there's a lot going on. There's things happening. It's a busy family. In a previous episode, in a previous vlog, I've flashed on a picture of some duck eggs incubating in the background, and it would be exactly 4 weeks ago, and a friend of mine said, I've got some fertilised duck eggs, I've got an incubator, would you like to borrow it, and would you like to use it? And of course I said yes. Not being very prepared then for this duckling that hatched only in the last 24 hours, I think it is 24 hours now, this duckling has arrived before I have anything like a heat lamp or anything like that, and I've read on the internet that when they don't have a mother, they cannot waterproof their feathers, and therefore they can get cold very quickly. So each time that the duckling falls into its little bowl of water, which is often, it then cheeps until I get it out and bring it up for a cuddle. And child arrangements proceedings carry on. It's not like for the next 7 days until my first hearing dispute resolution appointment I'm going to be in a stuffy office surrounded by law books, and that all of my preparation and focus has been on what I'm going to present to the court a week today. It has instead been a typical family background. There's GCSEs being juggled. Our teenage daughter is obviously dealing with that, which is extremely stressful for her. There are ducks hatching, and a lot going on. And this is what I keep going back to about how it does not make sense. It just doesn't make sense. When two co-parents realise that they're going to have to be co-parents for all of the child's life, then quite often that focuses the mind, and then people are capable of being civil with each other and saying, okay, we're going to put our own feelings to one side, and they will fall into a workable co-parenting relationship, a good co-parenting relationship, and I've cited examples of that. This is with somebody who is non-abusive and somebody who is able to put aside their own personal feelings and focus on the important job, bringing up the children, along with the other co-parent. So both co-parents are able to do this, and this is the ideal that the courts are looking for. The problem is that when domestic abuse is a feature, that co-parenting relationship will not work. And then this will always end up in court. This will always end up in court because one parent is using the child arrangements to continue the abuse of the other parent, and that is their priority. However they present themselves to the rest of the world as this loving, focused father, and yes, I am being gender specific. I can't go into disclaiming all of this at the moment. However, I am going to be talking gender specific in this episode because I'm talking about the prevalence of domestic abuse from the patriarchal society and the abuse within the co-parenting relationship. And it's typically the co-parenting arrangement where the father is being abusive of the mother and continuing those arrangements through the child, continuing that abuse through the child arrangements. In amongst this week, there's things that I've seen, things that I've had to do another episode about, which is the comments that I've made in the episode that we're hoping is coming out today as well, which is the one where I've explained about working as an escort. And it's also a question that's come up 3 or 4 times in the last few days, and it's people asking me if they want to go to the doctor and they're experiencing difficulties typically from the abuse. I'm not surprised. Then they want to go to the doctor but they don't go to the doctor. So I've covered that in a different episode, the one that's hopefully coming out today, and briefly outlining that, you know, if you do feel that you need a doctor, please do go to a doctor. It's not going to harm your children case at all. And in fact, it's a good thing because it means that you are seeking help, and that is what the family courts need to do, that is to see that you're seeking help to be the best parent that you can be, the most functioning parent. And if you're coming out of an abusive relationship, or if you're going through child arrangements proceedings and you need to see a doctor because of the stress of trying to manage that in amongst a busy household, typical things going on, you know, like ducks hatching, that kind of thing happens all the time. The usual things, the usual busyness, and then trying to fit all this in with the child arrangements application, having to go back over things, having to explain again that, you know, actually there was abuse, and the court found that there was abuse, etc, etc, etc. So, I have spoken to several ladies. There's 2 ladies in particular that I want to just comment on, and I'm being completely general, just saying things that I see as a solicitor, also going through the court system. One lady that I spoke to, that's enough. I'm a little bit concerned because I saw her post on a social media platform. And so this is a group of women talking. They are experiencing child arrangements proceedings, and this is UK, England and Wales. And she was saying about how the proceedings seemed to pause so that the outcome of a criminal trial that was running concurrently could be determined first. The idea being, because it was a related incident and it was assault from the father to the mother, the contact had stopped, the child arrangements application was happening, and the family court waited to find out the outcome of the criminal trial. The outcome of that criminal trial was that he was found not guilty. And that can happen because it's a very high standard. So the burden here is beyond reasonable doubt, not the same as the family court, which is on the balance of probabilities. What surprised me and worried me was the fact that the court seems to have paused, and then it just seems to have carried on with the not guilty being the actual fact, the truth of what happened. And so the mother is not being looked at, being heard, and the question is not being asked if this assault happened on the balance of probabilities, which may generate a completely different result. Why should it be on the balance of probabilities? Because we're talking about safeguarding children. And we're not going to take risks here. We're not going to take a bit of a chance, prove it beyond reasonable doubt that that parent or that child is being harmed in this way. It's just on the balance of probabilities. Better safe than sorry. I don't know if this will come out very well, but you'll see that the duck is actually unable to keep awake at this point. I never realised that a baby duckling had so many needs or demands. And I won't sidetrack here. This lady that I obviously chatted with her online, commented on her post, and I was worried about this. And one of the things that came up in our conversation, I realised that, as I know, she is at the same time trying to juggle a family life in the background of all these proceedings that are causing such distress to her. They are draining her energy, draining her time away, so that she doesn't have the same energy and focus for the children, and that's harmful to the children. That's what I need the family courts to see. I want to get this message across that the domestic abuse is so subtle, and there's ways, for example, this thing that I've disclosed today in the videos as I intended to. So I worked as an escort, and the way that threat to reveal this at this proceedings is just a different level of the abuse that isn't immediately obvious. And how would the court deal with it? Well, if somebody was doing that kind of work, and it does happen from these relationships, then the court would be looking with some concern. They would be wanting to see if there was any risk of harm to the children, and that's what my ex-abuser capitalised on at the time. And in the same way, this woman on the social media, she was talking about the difficulties that she was having, that the case was proceeding not only as though he was not guilty, but as though she was making up false allegations against him, as though she was attempting to alienate him by false allegations. And I keep getting back to this message that I'm trying to get across, that it does not make sense. This counter-allegation from an abusive father that the mother is emotionally harming the child, that it must at all costs, both parents must have a relationship with the child for that child's sake, and it's not at all costs at all. When there's been domestic abuse, the court will pause and the court will look at that. And that's in Practice Direction 12J. This is the message that I'm trying to get across all of the time, that it doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense for me in my situation. 5 years since he last had contact. Why would I do that? Why would I not want to promote contact for my daughter? Because it's good for her to know her dad, and it's healthy. It's a healthy way for children to develop, knowing both of their parents. The difficulty is if that parent is being found to be more harmful, to be in that child's life than out of it, then what do you do with that information? And so, in this last 5 years, there's been various issues following on from this. Another lady that I was speaking to, I said there were 2 women, she was discussing with me, this is where this doctor question came up as well, she was discussing with me her own proceedings which are going on, and again she's dealing with a just about to be teenager who the contact has just stopped, and that teenager is experiencing all kinds of things about that because children are too young to understand domestic abuse. And that's not a mother who is going to go, you know what, I'm going to make the next 5-6 years really difficult for myself by being the full-time sole carer for this child, these children, not giving myself any break, etc., etc. And so that's another woman in this situation, child arrangements going on, and all of this normal family life, or particularly difficult family life going on in the background. So child arrangements do not happen in a vacuum. I'm trying to get this message across about domestic abuse and its prevalence in the child arrangements when there's been domestic abuse between the co-parents, because it's the only way that it can continue. And it is always being used as a means of continuing the abuse. I hope that that's the message that I get across. And the other message that I want to get across, of course, is the consistent application of good practice, and the good practice which is the implementation of Practice Direction 12J. I hope that's what I'm going to get across, and the thing that will live in people's memories, and not just that solicitor with the duck. And so, me and the duck will go and do baby duck things. And thank you again for joining me in this episode. I hope that that's been informative or useful in understanding the difficulties that parties in child arrangements proceedings are facing as they're coming into the proceedings. They're not working in a vacuum, just able to sit there and write a position statement. Life is going on around them. And that the courts, once again this message, that the courts need to take allegations of domestic abuse seriously, because it just doesn't make sense in this busy schedule for one parent to say, I'm going to make up loads of reasons. Does it ever happen? Maybe it does. I don't see it very often at all, or anything like that. I hope that this is getting the message across, baby duck or no. Thank you again for joining me in this vlog, and I look forward to seeing you in the next episode and or vlog. Thank you again for watching.